Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode, Rick and I leave behind the fascinating Paranella Park and make our way to Silkwood, originally named after native timber producing trees, roughly halfway between Tully and Innisfail. Against the rainforest backdrop, Rick and I were interested in the different farming practices of the area, especially the grazing of beef cattle and backgrounding practices of the region, as the country with its high rainfall, fertile volcanic red soils and lush pastures is so vastly different to what we were more familiar with. We overnight in Ingham before making our way out to Halifax. There is always many twists and turns on our journey, and I am never sure in what direction or point of interest we will end up at. Having spent most of our lives in the more regional areas of Queensland and New South Wales, it was time to see some of the country we had heard about and had never had the time to visit. I found it interesting trying to get my head around just how green, lush and wet the country was, along with the various crops and plantations of the area. Some I had never heard of, not to forget checking out the cattle we were seeing. There is always so much to talk about on our travels, not just the conditions of the road. We crossed Liverpool Creek, with its headwaters located on the eastern slopes of the Walter Hill Range, and then passes through lush agricultural lands before eventually discharging into the Coral Sea at Cowley Beach. Our first stop was at the small rural settlement of Silkwood. The settlement boomed in the early 1900s alongside the sugar industry and the North Coast Railway, heavily shaped by northern Italian migrants who built a thriving agricultural and cultural community. Beginning in the 1920s and 1930s, hundreds of Sicilian families settled in the area to work the cane fields. Today, though the area is dominated by sugarcane farming, it also supports niche agricultural sectors like beef cattle grazing, where many former dairy farms in the hinterlands and surrounding valleys have transitioned into beef cattle grazing operations, aquaculture such as barramundi farms, and highly specialised commercial black pepper industry. Early infrastructure included the historic Silkwood brickworks established in 1936 by Italian immigrants to support local buildings. The former National Australia Bank building in town, operating from the 1930s until 1999, and is frequently claimed to be the smallest bank in Australia, now operates as a small museum. From Silkwood we made our way to Jairu National Park on the road between Al Arish and Mission Beach to walk off some of the pie we had had for lunch in Silkwood. The park protects some of the last remaining lowland rainforests in the wet tropics, including a rare patch of Leucula fan palm forest, and is also one of the few places we were likely to see the endangered southern cassowary. We took a short stroll along the circuit that took us through the forest and past viewing platforms overlooking Lacey Creek. We walked across numerous arms of Lacey Creek and saw turtles and fish swimming in the pools below. There were information signs along the walk which focused on all aspects of cassowaries and their interactions with the local environment. Yet again, I did not see the elusive cassowary, even though there was evidence that they were around, but we did enjoy the 1.5 kilometre walk. Lowland rainforests thrive below 100 metres on rich alluvial soils. Classified as an endangered ecological community, this dense layered ecosystem is famous for its towering, highly complex closed canopy about 30 metres above us, massive buttress roots, ancient ferns, an abundance of ancient flowering plants, canopy vines, sprawling epiphytes, and vibrant endemic wildlife. Because these nutrient-rich coastal plains were historically prized for agriculture, more than 70% of the original extent has been cleared. The remaining pockets face ongoing threats from fragmentation, residential development, weed invasion, and climate change. Rick and I felt so privileged to be able to walk through this amazing ecosystem. From there, we made our way to Mission Beach, an open ocean beach that faces essentially due east, said to be a laid-back tropical paradise that stretches across 14 kilometres of golden sand, connecting 4 villages: Bingle Bay, North Mission, Wongaling Beach and South Mission. Some coral reefs lie off the northern 3 kilometres of the beach, while Dunk Island dominates the horizon of the southern part of the beach. The beach is somewhat sheltered by Dunk Island and reefs, which results in low waves, usually less than half a metre, that interact with the generally fine to medium sand to produce a 50-metre wide high tide beach. It was then on to South Mission Beach, bounded in the south and southwest by the Hull River, with the North Hull River, a tributary of the Hull River, forming part of its northwestern boundary. Most of the land in the locality is low-lying, at less than 10 metres above sea level, and undeveloped, forming part of the Hull River National Park, an area around 3,240 hectares, of which about 2,100 hectares are estuarine mangroves, with the remainder being swamp forests dominated by melaleuca and specialist eucalypt species, commonly known as gum trees or stringy barks. However, there are some hills along the southeastern coastline, rising to unnamed peaks of up to 120 metres above sea level. As we stood on both Mission and South Mission beaches, we could see Dunk Island that lies 4 kilometres off the coast, opposite the town of Mission Beach. The island is one of the Family Islands, a group of 12 distinct islands which were once part of the Australian continent but formed when plate tectonics split them from the continent. They were part of the mainland until roughly 8,000 years ago, when the sea level rose. Most of Dunk Island lies within the Family Islands National Park, consisting of 8 of the islands and the larger Greater Barrier Reef World Heritage Area. Dunk Island is surrounded by reefs and has a diverse population of birds. Europeans first settled on the island in 1897, and during the Second World War, Dunk Island was used by the Royal Australian Air Force. In recent years, the island and its resort facilities have been adversely affected by both Cyclone Larry in March 2006 and Cyclone Yahtzee in early February 2011. From Mission Beach we made our way to Tully, nestled upon the stunning Tully River and alongside the ever-busy Bruce Highway. Tully is a fascinating rural town, in fact. Sugar is the town's primary industry and one of Queensland's largest sugarcane producers, growing 22,000 hectares of the stuff, along with banana production. It is also reputed to be one of the wettest towns in Australia. With all of that rain, with an average annual rainfall of 4.4 metres, the town built a huge 7.9 metre high fiberglass gumboot statue, the Golden Gumboot, built to scale of the annual rainfall received in 1950, giving us some idea of the kind of wet season Tully has. With all that rain, the nearby Tully River is said to be one of the best places in Australia to go whitewater rafting. From the top of the Golden Gumboot, Rick had a clear view of the Tully Sugar Mill, a wholly owned subsidiary of Chinese agribusiness company COFCO, that mills sugar cane to produce raw sugar of internationally recognised high quality, all exported. Molasses, a byproduct of the sugar extraction process, is a valuable cattle feed supplement, sold into both the domestic cattle feed and international markets. In the harvesting period, sugar reigns supreme. The season lasts between May and November, so the Tully Sugar Mill becomes a busy landmark during these months, and we were keen to watch the sugarcane train as it brought the raw sugarcane into the mill. These trains operate 24/7 during the crushing season. Historically known as sugar tramways, Queensland's sugar railways have come a long way since they were first established as steam and horse-hauled tramways in the 1880s and have evolved into modern narrow-gauge railways that are essential to the sugar industry. Diesel hydraulic locomotives can pull up to 2,000 tonnes of cut cane and can be up to 1 kilometre in length. In the rain trees beside the golden gumboot, I was fascinated by the metallic starlings and their nests, a very noisy group of individuals. These long-tailed iridescent black birds with bright red eyes are native to Australia's tropical northeast, arriving from New Guinea to breed in large communal colonies during the summer months, to breed and leave around February-March. They are highly social, omnivorous, and known for their distinctive metallic green-blue sheen, which changes with the light, and their habit of nesting in huge, noisy groups in single tall rainforest trees, where they build messy, suspended globular nests. Juveniles are brown and white with streaks before gradually developing the adult's metallic plumage. We crossed the Tully River that rises in the Caldwell Range, part of the Great Dividing Range on the northern boundary of the Kurrama State Forest. The Tully, together with the Herbert and the Burdekin rivers, were part of the proposed Bradfield scheme to divert the upper reaches of the three rivers west of the Great Dividing Range and into the Thomson River, designed to irrigate and drought-proof much of Western Queensland's interior, as well as large areas of South Australia. The scheme was proposed in 1938 and abandoned in 1947. From Tully it was on to Caldwell, that lies in the heart of the Great Green Way driving route and is the gateway to Hinchinbrook Island, the largest island national park in Australia. Settled in 1864, Caldwell was the first settlement north of Bowen and is the only town in the world where two World Heritage listed areas are joined, the first being the Wet Tropics World Heritage Area, starting north of Townsville and finishing south of Cooktown, and the second, the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park World Heritage Area. While in Caldwell, we visited the Caldwell Coral Sea Battle Memorial Park, a significant historical site that commemorates the Battle of the Coral Sea during World War II. The park features a memorial that includes two sloping walls, a central pillar, and details of the battle etched on either side. It overlooks the waterfront and is flanked by flagpoles that fly both the Australian and the US flags. The park serves as a tribute to the brave souls who fought and died to save Australia from Japanese invasion in 1942. We wandered through this touching memorial all the way to the beach, making us more aware and grateful for the sacrifices made during the Second World War, especially when you see just how close the Battle of the Coral Sea was to our country. The Battle of the Coral Sea between May the 4th to May the 8th, 1942, was the first naval battle in history fought entirely by aircraft, halting the Japanese advance towards Australia and marking a strategic turning point in the Pacific War. Taking place in the Pacific theatre of World War II, the battle was the first naval action in which the opposing fleets neither sighted nor fired upon one another, attacking over the horizon from aircraft carriers instead. It was also the first military battle between aircraft carriers. On leaving Caldwell, we had just over 50 kilometres to Ingham. On the way, we passed through Geringan National Park, consisting mainly of wet sclerophyll forests, a type of vegetation that is adapted to long periods of dryness and heat, alongside small pockets of rainforest that exist along the eastern slopes and hilltops. The Seaview, George and Caldwell ranges dominate the landscape, which is strewn with granite debris from a volcanic eruption 100,000 years ago. We crossed the Herbert River, the southernmost of Queensland's wet tropic river systems, named in 1864 by George Elphinstone. Their headwaters form at an elevation of over 1,000 metres on the Atherton Tablelands west of Herberton and north of Ravenshoe, and is formed by the confluence of the Millstream and Wild rivers. On arriving in Ingham, we found a motel for the night and relaxed. I may not do the driving, but my head becomes overloaded some days, not only with where we go, but from all the signs and information panels we read along the way. So an early night was in store for my brain, to sort out all that we had seen and read. Ingham is nestled amongst rugged mountain peaks, giant waterfalls, sugarcane-filled floodplains, wild islands, tropical reefs, and a beckoning coastline. With more than half Ingham's population being of Italian descent, it isn't surprising that the township is often referred to as Little Italy. Settled in 1864, Ingham is the heart of the local sugarcane industry, where many Italian migrants came to work, and has one of the largest sugar mills in Australia. The following morning we made our way to Halifax, about 15 kilometres northeast of Ingham, another town in North Queensland we had never visited. The clouds on top of the ranges were again quite stunning. The Herbert River meanders through the Herbert Valley. After George Dalrymple's voyage from Port Hinchinbrook near Caldwell in 1864, the territory was offered up for selection. August Anderson, a blacksmith, purchased the land in 1880, after which time the land was turned into sugar plantations. Once the plantations were established, other settlers arrived to assist with working the land, and further development took place, including the establishment of a hotel and a store. In 1885, Halifax as a town had its beginnings, when August Anderson conceived the idea of utilising used portions of his land. Early in 1886, having engaged an auctioneer from Townsville, who arrived accompanied by some 300 people on a specially chartered steamer for the auction, well advertised even down to a handkerchief with a map of the town printed on it, where people could refer to see the position of the allotments. What a fascinating way for a town to begin. Rick and I will leave you here in Halifax for this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and leave a comment. Join us next time as we check out the longest service jetty in the Southern Hemisphere and the quiet beachside community of Taylor's Beach before making our way further south. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Catch you next episode. Enjoy your travels. Rick and Rosemary. R&R Live and Life.